All right. Okay, so we are live on Facebook and welcome,
Yay!
Zarina.
Thank you, Pip. So
Oh,
excited to be here.
it's so exciting to have you here. It's incredible what you're doing, and I'm so excited to actually, you're our first guest live on
Woo!
Facebook. So thank you for all your help and, helping making this happen and everything. I am just
Pleasure.
gonna quickly switch into my Facebook account and make sure that this is actually showing for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so if you are watching this and you're either in the group or you're on the page, it looks like my um, the video is streaming on both at the same time. So I'm going to jump onto my page so that I can actually watch if anyone has any comments or reactions at the same time, and then I can feed those onto you and we can answer those questions. So if you're watching in the group, please jump out of the group onto the page instead so that I can actually work with that. If everything was as quick as it was, it would be a lot easier. Here we go. Okay, great. Yes, we're live on the page and it's all working. So I can actually see if there's any comments that will come through and then I can feed them on to you. Um, so yes, again, welcome, Zarina.
Thank you, Pip.
Officially, now that the tech is out of the way, it's wonderful to have you on board. And we've obviously spoken a fair amount about conscious parenting, and I've learned so much of you. And I'm so excited to share what you work with and what you've learned, and particularly, who you've learned from, and to, provide insights for our other mothers who are part of this page and community. And yeah, so I thought maybe I would let you, introduce yourself and your background. You're a mum of three yourself. So you can let us know about the wildness that you've endured. Because this is a group of wild mamas. This is all for, the craziness is just part of who we are, and we totally embrace that. Um, and so I know that the topic that we're going to cover today is very much aligned with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I always get this out the way first if I'm speaking in New Zealand because the question comes up later about my accent. So I was born and brought up in the UK and I came over here about 7 years ago. So I haven't quite lost the accent yet. Um, as far as my journey into conscious parenting, like you, it was a bit of a wild ride in the beginning. With when I had my first, my family had emigrated to New Zealand. I was left behind in the UK with this new baby, and as she grew older, I was like, huh, she doesn't listen to me, and it was very startling. Like if I give her a you do this, she does the direct opposite, and no amount of cajoling and counseling and um, and it was really infuriating to the extent that I actually went and got experts in the field to try and help me fix my child. Like I genuinely thought there's a problem here and we need to get it fixed. So that journey actually took me to the doorsteps of lots of teachers, parenting experts, psychologists. With your first, and if you have the resources, you go crazy because you need to get it right. Eventually, and none of them actually satisfied me. I think I should say that I was never totally sold on the super nanny way of parenting or the other books that I read until I came across Dr. Shefali. Funnily enough, I was thinking about this today. I actually, one of my friends sent me a link to her audiobooks way before I found her the second time and said, listen to this lady. And I remember listening, thinking, this is so esoteric. Like, she's not giving any tools and techniques, Like, I don't need the theory. I need something to happen. So I never bothered finishing it. The second time round, when I was introduced to her work, or I found her work, I was in a very different space. I think I had exhausted the other options, read myself silly on different parenting methodologies, the child's brain, psychology I'd gone into. Um, because I'm a pharmacist by profession, so naturally I'm inclined towards science and research and
Answers.
how the brain works. Um, and so the second time when I was introduced to Dr. Shefali, I was in a very different headspace. I think I had begun to realize, this may not be about my child. This may be something to do with me.
And
so
where are you at this stage? I mean, how many kids have you got at this stage?
So now I have three. I have three girls. So
Yes, sorry, when you were in a different headspace, more in tune
I
with.
only had the one.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay,
it
so
was
it's just later on down the track.
first child, and I was
Yeah.
just freaking out, and it wasn't the perfect picture that I had in my mind, and
Mm.
so I went crazy looking for answers. So that's when I found Dr. Shefali, and my search kind of ended with her because she she fused Eastern mindfulness and wisdom, which I grew up with in the background, with Western psychology, and that marriage to me was like a sweet spot between the
Mm.
both. And
Mhm.
that's what initially attracted me to her and her teachings.
Great. So I think just to maybe for everybody listening, could you basically kind of, I guess it's possibly quite a hard concept to summarize, but what is conscious parenting? And so we've heard a lot about Dr. Shefali. So how has she termed this a methodology, or what's so different about this method compared to the other tools and techniques, or that you'd seen or heard from different experts?
Right. So I think to call it a methodology maybe is,
Mm.
is misleading of me, because
Hmm.
there is no real method.
Yeah.
It's not
Let's do
linear.
what works for you. Yeah.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
But conscious parenting essentially is about raising the child within you first, so our inner children,
Hmm.
and then raising the child in front of you. So it's about doing your own healing, your own work, and becoming whole first, and then looking at the child in front of you. So um, it's the only, I was going to say methodology, and I was like trying to steer away from the word.
Framework.
Yeah, it's the only framework within parenting I've seen that focuses on you and says the child is not broken. If anyone needs fixing, or if anyone is broken, turn the mirror back. And it's always about seeing the reflection and seeing what inner wounds you need to heal. Because a lot of what we do with our children is projection. Projection from what? Our past, the way we were brought up, our experiences. They color the lens from which we look at our children.
Mm.
You know, one concept I remember early on she taught was about labeling, this labeling of a good and a bad child. Does it really exist? We put these labels on the children, right? And then
Mm.
we get upset when they're being bad. But
Mm.
you labeled that as bad
Yeah,
behavior.
it's so easy as well when they aren't reacting the way you want, and we have this inner control within us to, put your shoes on now. We need to get out of the house. Like, I've got somewhere to be. And we do sometimes, try and just box them into doing certain things and expect them to react the way that we want them to react.
Right,
Um,
because it's your agenda, right? You
yeah.
have to get out the house and be somewhere on time.
Mm.
But they're their own sovereign being, but you've pulled them into the agenda. I find it easiest also to explain to parents the way you are talking to your child right now, day to day. Would you talk like that to your spouse
Or even yourself.
or even yourself?
Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of us, our inner
Or
voices
sometimes
are quite
quite, yeah.
critical and rude
Mm,
to
mm,
ourselves. But it's
mm,
funny you bring up the shoe example, because A lot of people ask me, what's the difference between peaceful parenting and conscious parenting? So peaceful parenting, with the shoe example, would look like you look at your own inner regulation. What's going on with me? How am I feeling? Set up the environment. So make sure the shoes are in the right place, and you explain to the child, you get down and you connect with them eye level. I feel conscious parenting takes it one step further. And if you like, the secret sauce of it is, why did that whole incident trigger you, make you
Mm.
overly angry in the first place? And you go and deconstruct that, because you go back, back, you'll get to the real fear underlying your reaction. The minute you're in reaction, you're in false self. You're not aligned to your authentic self. And essentially, conscious parenting is all about getting you back in alignment and in tune with your authentic self.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, because I really like the, the peaceful parenting and kind of taking it a step further. It's easier to kind of understand conscious parenting. Um, but I understand as well, like what I've read up on is that there's, principles that underpin what conscious parenting is. Could you maybe elaborate a bit more on those and kind of give a few examples as to what I'm talking about for our audience?
Which principles are you pointing towards?
So, kind of it talks about, a non-violent manner, and it talks about, um,
Right. Okay,
yeah,
those eightfold.
yeah,
So, with them, one of the ones I'll just pick up on is, we don't believe in punishment. And sometimes the question that comes up is, oh, so there's no discipline? That, like, there's no consequences? Um, yes and no. So consequences, I feel, is the new age term for a punishment. You don't want to say punishment, so you'll say consequence, because it's
mm,
more PC and it sounds very sophisticated. I'm giving a consequence, I'm not punishing them.
I have to
um,
admit that was me this morning.
we all do it, right? You're not going to get the
Yeah,
iPad if you
yeah.
don't do
Well,
this.
Harry swore. So he said, "You don't want the green sauce, do you?" It's gonna be
Okay.
wasabi.
Oh, wasabi. I was like, I know what red sauce is, I'm not sure what green is. Okay,
Green sauce.
wasabi,
He's
not.
definitely terrified of the green sauce after trying it on my sushi.
Yeah, that is strong stuff. um So again, discipline, where does the word come from? In Latin, it's disciple. That's the root
Mm,
word.
mhm.
Um, and I don't think any of us really, truly, if we're connected to our authentic self, we don't want our children to be our disciples.
Yeah.
We want to raise confident children who are empowered, right?
Mm,
So the whole notion of discipline and consequences, in conscious parenting, there are boundaries for sure. There's sand boundaries and there's stone boundaries. Sand ones we shift depending. So if the boundary is at 8:30, all devices turn off, and your child says, "Oh, there's only 5 minutes left of this episode. Can I just finish it?" That's the sand boundary. Okay, 8:35 that night. However, the stone boundaries are the life affirming ones, where there's no negotiation. But I've talked about this, I think, with you before. It's the energy you bring to each of those boundaries. When you're dealing with a sand boundary, your energy is very different to that of a stone boundary, which is more to do with, God forbid, your child had a life threatening illness and you had to give them medication 3 times a day and they didn't want to take it. And they said, no, no, no. That's not sand where you're like, okay, maybe not today. You would hold their mouth open and probably
mm.
shove it in, because that's going to save their life. There's no negotiation.
Sort of
The
teaching
energy
them
you
that they
bring to
can't
that,
run across the road, you know. Yeah.
right.
Hold
So the
hands crossing the
So
road,
conscious
left and
parenting is
right.
not passive parenting, like, just do what you want, man, as long as you're connected to your inner self. No, you're aware. You take action you're consciously aware, conscious action. It's very different.
So in terms of like understanding more, or if you were to, get into conscious parenting, because I really like the philosophies, like the idea around it, and we've had a chat, but if you were actually to take this one step further and go, okay, I'm a person who wants to learn more about this, and what tools will I get out of learning about conscious parenting? What tools can I bring to the table? How is this going to kind of change my relationship with my child and I? And also, how do I become kind of a bit more conscious, I guess, in terms of realizing that I'm also a student, I'm also learning from my child. How do I bring that into my daily practice? So I guess that's kind of a
100%.
twofold question, but yeah.
Your child is your awakener. As much as you awaken your child, they're your awakener, but you have to be aware to those lessons. So as far as I think what you're trying to maybe say is, if I go through this journey of conscious parenting, what do I expect at the end? What's the end result?
And what do
So
I get out of it? Like, kind of, how is it run? How, are there different stages that you go through, or what will I learn from through it? Yeah.
So it really is a journey for the courageous. I will say that. It's not for anyone looking for an easy ride, because there is work to be done, inner work. But the other side of it is the connection, the kinship, the closeness, the genuine friendship you develop with your children is second to none. The ease with which, are there hard days? 100%. It's not a magical cure-all, but they lessen, and you learn lessons from the hard days, and your perspective changes, and it doesn't wear you down the same way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Are you able to provide any sort of tangible examples, potentially with clients that you have worked from? I mean, obviously not listing any specific details, but, what sort of parents are coming to you and saying, Zarina, I want to jump into conscious parenting because I'm struggling with XYZ. What are a few of those things?
A lot of parents recently with the pandemic, because I have parents from around the world, so anxious children, that's been a big one. Another one has been, because we're quite fortunate in New Zealand.
Sorry, you there? I think I'm losing you.
They want to stop that yelling.
Oh, sorry. Could you just repeat that again? It just went a bit fuzzy for a while. You mentioned anxious parents.
So I was saying that a lot of parents are coming to me with anxious children. The parents are anxious, yelling. Yelling's a big one. And also it's age dependent. I find that under sixes, it's more a control thing, that they don't listen, and I can't control my children. The tweens, it's disconnection starting to happen, that I have no relationship. Like they just want to be on their devices. They don't want a relationship with me. What's going on? And teenagers, a whole host of issues there. But that's just to give you a little flavor.
Yeah. I mean, it shows that you've worked with parents across kind of the whole spectrum, and that there's something, it's not, do it now and you've got the tools forever. It is, like you say, takes work, and different challenges present different solutions and opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as you go on the journey to become a conscious parent, actually all your relationships start changing, because the tools or the awareness that comes, the parent-child relationship is the one that magnifies all your issues 100-fold. Like the pandemic, when we were in lockdown, people said, there's issues coming up between husband and wives and mothers and children. Those issues were always there. It's just the pandemic magnified them, because you couldn't run away. You didn't have 8 hours a day where you were busying yourself doing other things. It was bam in your face, So same with the parent-child dynamic. It highlights the issues, but those issues are probably playing some role in every relationship you have.
So you mentioned, like that you can help, kind of the a vast amount, majority of parents from, and children from all different ages. Um, what tools can you offer, or how would we get involved with, learning more?
I think honestly, to get started, if someone's listening to this and they're interested and it's
Mm,
perked their curiosity,
mm,
Google is your friend, my friend. Google Dr.
mm,
Shefali, 1001 videos will come up. Watch a
mm,
video, read her books. If and there's so much content in that, but I think just a daily practice, and I really advocate this. I know some people may cringe. Give yourself time to meditate, even if it's just 5 minutes in the morning or the evening or the middle of the day. It has to obviously grow, but meditation gives you that awareness. You step back a little bit and you become the observer, the witnesser to your
mm,
thoughts. And
mhm.
it's that inner voice, those thoughts, the stories we create that color our world that we react to. You
Yeah.
see, our thoughts, our feelings, the feelings we experience, sadness, joy, anger, frustration, they're very loyal to our thoughts. So if you have a thought, my child is disrespecting me, that is going to bring up something in you, right?
Mm,
Anger or frustration. That thought is linked to a belief system. Children should respect their adults. Adults are to be respected because they're in a position of power, they're in a hierarchy.
mm,
That is the way it should be. That is the way it was for me. So in meditation, you step back from all the thoughts, the beliefs, the voices, and just observe. And it gives you that distance and that pause, that actually what is upsetting me is is it a story I'm telling myself, or is it reality? Because a lot of us don't see reality for what it really is.
mm.
There's so many examples, I'm sure that's happened to you too, Pip. Like if a friend doesn't message you, for example, you will
Oh,
build
yeah.
up a story in 2 seconds.
It's what we do as women, I think. Might be
Yep.
generalizing. But generally, I mean, like you said, we actually are critical of ourselves a lot of the time. And that made me think kind of the examples that you were mentioning. I was just thinking, just as being a parent, as a mum, we talk about mum guilt, but if we really dissect it and we think about all the different scenarios that we've dealt with, when I am saying, get your shoes on, come on, and you start building up this tone, and I've got to get out, we've got to get to daycare, we've got things to do, mommy has to be somewhere. And then when you finally kind of the dust settles, you sit with that and you just feel awful. You realize, and then the other part of it is just dealing with that guilt and giving yourself a bit of a break, realizing, looking at it from a different lens and going, okay, I was getting a bit intense there, and why did I do that? And trying to, a lot of the time you can just mull it over and beat yourself up. And I think what I like about this is just saying, give yourself the grace to accept it, own it, and work with the tools to become more conscious about how you're acting and why you're reacting like that. And like you say, going back to, how you were parented, and taking what you valued from your parents' methods in terms of the parenting, and also realizing what you didn't agree with. Because I also find myself reacting in certain circumstances and going, gosh, I know I just repeated what my mom said, or I know that was something my dad would do. And certain things you can be totally proud of. Like, I know that this is a really positive moment. This is how I like to parent. Um, Sorry, Zarina, I'm not sure if I lost you. It's gone. Oh, there you go. You're back. But in other circumstances, you can go, actually, I didn't enjoy that as a child. And now I find myself doing the same thing,
Yeah.
And it's a cycle, and you go, well, if I didn't enjoy it, why would I do this? And it's just an automatic reaction. And I think it is that awareness that you try and build up. but not to mull over it too much. And
It's
just
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, 100% automatic, because that's the template in your head. And that's a reason why, this is a little bit off topic, but why generational trauma keeps being passed on generation to generation, because it is the template that you play out, right? And our parents, as lovely as they were, some of them graciously, with great generosity, parented us unconsciously, not through any fault of their own. We all do the best we can with what we have, right?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it is about doing that inner work and being aware of the triggers and why are the triggers. And once you clean up one area and you're like, oh, okay, this is flowing, this is good, I get, I've cleared myself,
Yeah,
something
sorry.
else will pop
Do
up.
parents come with specific problems, and it's kind of like once the problem is resolved, they're able to use the tools in different circumstances?
Yes, like the overarching deconstruction they can use in different circumstances. Parents never, I've yet to have a parent come to me and say, dear Zarina, everything is going really well, but I'd love to learn about conscious parenting. People who come, it's when the fire is raging, they're in the thick of it. There's something going on. That's when they cry out for help.
Are there any sort of
But
parents that have come with, I guess, you know, children who have psychological issues, or yeah, different.
yeah, I've coached a lady whose daughter has been diagnosed with autism. But as far as psychological issues, so I should make a disclaimer here.
Yeah.
As a coach, there is a limitation. So we're not therapists, we're not
Yeah.
counselors. And if there's a diagnosis of mental health, it's probably best to go to a professional who's trained in those mental health aspects.
Yeah, from a
A lot of the
specialized point.
times people have a coach on the side for themselves, but for the child, they obviously need that specialist care.
Yeah.
So
So
there are
yeah, because I was wondering, you mentioned that, a lady with whose child had autism. So it's you're acting as a guiding force for the parent and how they can work with their children um, to better form a relationship despite all the difficulties or challenges that they face.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, it's been it's such a broad topic, and it's, I guess you could spend ages getting into the detail around it depending on each issue, because where I am, for example, in my life, I have two young ones, a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I am probably at that stage of parenting where, yeah, it's very much reaction based, trying to be conscious of things as best as I can. But it is, why aren't you listening to me? Am I talking to the walls or the trees? Because I know you hear me. I know you're listening, but you're choosing not to. So why not? And how can I make this? And I feel there is a lot about, I feel sometimes, and the guilt sits in with it, can be me, like, I need you to do this. I need you to react like this. You are a tricky toddler. We're told about the terrible twos and then the three-nager. And you do sometimes forget that, or it's not that you necessarily forget, but you don't even have the patience or the grace to give them the space because they are such little people. And you're at the verge of snapping, and it's how you bring yourself back. And then you learn, just at this point, before you're at the stage where you're not a parent and you don't really understand what parents are going through. Then you have a newborn and you're at this, crazy, like, my life is completely shifted to the toddler phase. And now I'm seeing in other friends with, older children going through, the school difficulties, and when, children are really forming friendships and being influenced from a young age in terms of, all the issues that they encounter, from bullying to, trying to find their place. And become the people that they're going to be, through to the teenagehood, as well. And I know what sort of teenager I was, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody.
Oh,
Um, yeah, so it's just very interesting that parenting is such a journey, like you say, and we have such different chapters that we go through. And I like what you mentioned, we're doing the best job with what we have, because it is about what each of us has, such a different environment space that we bring our children up. We have different beliefs, and we've obviously, our templates that you spoke about, they're all different. So we can never really look at other parents and go, those guys have got it together, or those guys don't know what they're doing, or it's so easy to judge in this world. And we see a lot more of it.
so easy. It's funny.
Yeah,
There's an Instagrammer who I won't mention her just for
yeah.
confidentiality purposes, but she was coming to me and she was like, I want to mention you on my stories because yeah, it's really helped me. So she did a shout out, which, I was like, that's great. And I got a few people coming, and they said, the first thing they said was, I cannot believe X needed help, came to you. Like, because from the image on Instagram,
Mm,
she has like the perfect family. They have the
mm,
best times together. And obviously, you explain to them that that's just a snapshot of like a long day, of a long week, of a long month. Um, but it was actually really funny to see people coming through that channel because they were like, if she needs help, oh my God, you know?
yeah. We are all actually normal people at the end of the day, and behind
Yeah.
closed doors, so much can go on. And yeah, I'm very aware of kind of that image that people see in terms of things being so organized on the outside, which is basically why I started Wild Mumma.
But Pip,
Kind of
I love
alluded
that about
alluded to the
you.
wildness because oh, thank
Yeah, I
you.
love that. Your
Yeah.
page, like when you show up as is,
Mm.
and
Yeah.
I enjoy watching your little snippets because I remember my time. I'm like, yep, I feel that. Like,
It's crazy.
but actually, it'll be fun looking back at the documentation of
Yeah,
this.
I was thinking though, this is probably where the guilt's going to sit in, and my children are going to be like, "Oh my gosh, my mother threw my lives away on, like on Facebook and Instagram." Well, hopefully Facebook is going to be redundant by the time that they're older and they're looking through social media. Um,
But on the flip side, I think you're helping many mums kind of when they're having a hard time or a hard day, if they see your post, to think, I'm not alone.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's exactly it. It's just, we are all so different, and we all encounter challenges. And that's really what I wanted to bring to the forefront is we often have this, like you said, as, we sit with things, and we can easily look at other people and think they have it together, or think someone is, uh, doing really well in one area, or that child so behaved, or how did they get their child to potty train that quickly, or how does the child sleep through the night, and we analyze all these different things, and we try and take all of that and kind of go, why can't I do that? Why do I need to make this, what am I doing wrong? And we just beat ourselves up a lot of the time, and then the frustration builds in. And it's a link with the template that we've been brought up with as well, with our how our parents parented us. And it just can become sometimes this wild tornado that goes on our head, and something flips you over the edge and you just snap, you
Yeah.
know and like you said, people are coming to you when they're in that fire, when they're in that moment of, what am I doing wrong? And I'm just,
Mm,
nothing is
mm.
working. um, and it's incredible that you've got these tools to help us to work through these areas, to help us move on. But also just realizing that everybody goes through this, and like you say, at all stages of parenting, what we experience now. And I always say to my friends, whatever you've got working for you right now, enjoy it. Or if there's a really difficult time, take it in, but know that it's not going to last.
Yeah.
We're going through different challenges all the time, and everything that you experience is a phase. Your child could be sleeping through now. Next month, they might not. Yeah.
And this is the nature of it, right? Like, this is the way of it. But we have so much resistance to accepting the as isness, the reality, what is in front of us, because the script or the movie playing is it should be like this, but it is like this. And this is where the suffering comes when you resist what is your reality.
Mm,
Accepting the as is doesn't mean you passively just put your hands up and you're like, okay, there's nothing I can do. Again,
yeah.
no, you can, but from a different place. Taking action from a place of acceptance is always going to have a different energy. Even consciousness really is about energy. Being
Mm,
unconscious, asleep in autopilot has a different energy to being awake and aware, right? Pip, back to what you were saying, to your point, it makes me really sad actually when I get calls and I hear mothers almost wishing their motherhoods away, like I can't wait till bedtime. It
yeah.
because it will be gone for all of us, and we'll look back. And I think the beauty of doing any work, even if you don't go into conscious parenting, any kind of parenting or on yourself, is to give yourself that gift of enjoying the children,
Mm,
like
mm,
really enjoying them
yeah.
and their
And being in the
childhood.
moment. It is so hard at some points, but so important. And I remember someone saying to me on my wedding day, take a step back and try and take it all in. And I think I love that, because I did get to have that moment where I became conscious of it, as everyone's saying speeches, and kind of went, oh, I enjoy this. I'm loving this, because it was such a fast paced, crazy day. And you're worried about all the little things like my hair and my makeup, and when's the photographer coming, and I've got to talk to the videographer, and are the fans on the table, and are the flowers set, and all these different little pieces. And organizing things, and it's similar with parenting. You're trying to organize your child. You're trying to get them set up for life constantly, whether it be dealing with them and trying to get them out the door to daycare, or trying to ensure that they're at the right school, or have they got the right activities, or university, and what group of friends are they on. You almost feel like, as a parent, you constantly need to protect and organize. And I think it's in those moments, like you say, where you find you're constantly trying to control. I have that from my wedding, and every now and then remind myself, if I could do it then, I can do it now. I need to do it now, because I need to take the step back. And often, like, I'll be trying to get Harry down a bed, and he can be so tricky, especially with daylight savings. He's
Mm.
busybody, and he wants to go to bed like almost 8, sometimes even creeping into 9 o'clock these days. And sometimes the only way we can get him to sleep is by lying next to him, and almost ignoring him, and just taking a book
Yeah.
ourselves, and like ignoring him, and trying to to get him to like just turn around, go to sleep, and I can get on with my evening. And you
Mm.
have
Mm.
those moments very quickly and very easily. But the other night, found myself doing it, and he actually said to me, "Mommy, don't work." And it broke my heart. And I realized, you know what? Put the book down. I don't need to rush this. It's almost become, unconsciously, it's almost become a habit of mine. How I get him to bed is to see me ignore towards the end. We do story time and we have fun. But then I'm like, okay, now I've just got to turn over, and I read my book so he can turn over. And
Mm.
and I realized that he's actually probably, this is creating something that he's seeing in me. And I just became conscious of it when he said that. And I think, this is exactly, like, I guess, for me, in a nutshell, conscious parenting summed up, is what I learned from him on that night.
So
That.
He awakened you in a way.
100%. And I, in that moment thought, I should be so grateful to be lying in bed with him and putting him to sleep, because I know there's going to be a day that he just takes himself to sleep and he's not going to want me in the room.
Yeah. No,
Um,
100%. And that's the thing. If you're in that mindset to hear that, what was he really saying? Do you have to work, or can you be present with me?
yeah, can you be present in this moment with me? Yeah. And it's that taking a step back, and like you say, and I know every challenge or every phase is so short lived in the grand
And
scheme of things.
absolutely, and they're absorbing everything.
Mm,
We the old adage, it's not what you say, it's what you do. I remember with my youngest, I started meditating and I found it difficult to find time. So when I would lie next to her, like yourself, story time, and we'd connect, and then it would be finally time to go to sleep.
mm,
So I remember I used to sit up in bed a little bit and just start my breathing. And initially, when I started meditation, I couldn't just do it like normal breath. I had to be a bit mindful so I could feel the breath coming in
yeah.
and out. So it wasn't too noisy, but you could tell I was doing a deep breath in and out. And I think it was like the fifth night in, as I was breathing out, I heard more breathing, and I was like, what's that? And I saw her lying down, and I was like, what are you doing? And she said, oh, I'm just meditating like you.
It is so
Which I
incredible what they pick up, and you often what they're picking up is generally what you're not thinking they're going to be picking up,
Right,
all the good and the
exactly.
bad.
I
So
find it really funny when some parents are like, I screamed at my child today, and I said, why? And this one parent comes to mind, and she said, I've been meditating, and it's really helped me, I feel, and I really wanted her to do it. And I was like, just meditate, for God's sake, just meditate. And I was
yeah,
like, oh, kind of not in the spirit of meditation, though.
yeah. It's like you say, it's up to them. They are their own beings. They are their own people, and I guess it goes from this newborn phase where you are in control of everything to all of a sudden witnessing them growing up and realizing that your control slips further and further away.
I think
Mm,
that's why kids come to us,
yeah.
though. I think there's an
Mm,
illusion of control. I don't think
mm,
we have control over anything, and
mm,
we never had control. I think it's an
mm,
illusion. And I think the pandemic was a good example of that, because people had their 2020s mapped out, like 12 months of the year. They knew where they were going, what they were doing, and bam,
mm,
you know,
mm.
they,
Just on the pandemic, you mentioned, a lot of parents coming with anxious children. I think there's been a lot of anxious parents as well, and particularly first-time parents and parents to be, where they're bringing their children up in this world. So, do you have any words for them? And just recently, I actually spoke with a mum who's got another one on the way, and she's got a 1.5 year old. And she was very anxious because her child couldn't attend daycare. And they were so concerned around, kids socializing and the fact that he was missing out on this. So, what sort of, do you have any words in terms of, yeah, for the I guess the majority of our group is, parents with
yeah.
young children. What have you kind of seen as the key things coming through, and what could help them?
I think firstly acknowledging that they are feeling anxious and it's normal and it's fine, like accepting rather than feeling like, oh my God, there's something really wrong with me. Secondly, journaling. That's a very practical tip. If
Yeah,
we get
I
our
love
thoughts out.
it.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, I love journaling. It's always helped me. It's been a big part. I'm a huge advocate of it, and putting pen to paper and
Yeah, and
mm,
getting those thoughts out. And sometimes when you read back, you realize maybe some of those anxieties are not actually as big. We magnify everything in our
mm,
brains, and then we have a visceral physiological reaction to it. But when you read it, sometimes you can laugh at some of the things you're putting
Mm.
down, right? You're like, oh, that's really not that big a
Glad
deal.
I moved on from that.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
thirdly, if you're deconstructing something, for example, I am anxious about this, try saying, I am anxious about this because, and then because, and keep going until you can't go any further. You will get to one of probably 3 fears, underlying fears, and that'll just give you a little bit of an insight into, okay, this keeps coming up in different forms.
Mm, Oh, that's a really great way of putting it. And I think just on the journaling, because I talk about journaling a lot as well, because it helped me so much, and I saw the impact that it had on my life. Um, for me, it wasn't even necessary. I've got physical journals, but I kind of felt like I journaled throughout the day, if that made sense. You're a busy mom on the go. And I just encourage people to, like you say, just get the thoughts out of your head. I didn't walk around with my journal. I didn't go, okay, I don't have a journal, so I can't get this thought out. We have our phones on us 24/7. So when I had a thought, I would just pop it into the notes in my phone. And it just like, okay, I thought about that. I've got that off my chest. And then sometimes my husband and I would like talk about these things and I say, well, actually, because you often get the question, what did you do today? And the whole day has just been a complete blur. And I don't know, so much has happened. But when I'd open my phone and kind of go, oh, yeah, these were the sort of things that came up. Like, I didn't know how to deal with this situation. So I did X, Y, Z. What would you have done? And had open that discussion with my husband, because that was also us kind of like, aligning on our parenting and making sure that we were on the same page. And just sort of, if I was building something up in my head, it's sometimes nice to have somebody else kind of that you're close to, go, actually, don't worry about that. That's not a big deal. Like, or, sometimes you just need that. You're doing a good job. And if it's tackling those problems as they come up, I think, to not let them get to that explosive phase,
I
where
love
it's
that.
so easy to do that. So, yeah.
I do a course for women,
Mm,
not to do with parenting, to do with sparking the match to their inner transformation. And believe it or not, week 1, the first exercise that I get them to do for the whole week, obviously, these are women who are well invested in their own growth, so they're willing to do this, but is to set a timer for every hour on the hour during the day, and whatever they're thinking about, they have to write it down. And like you said, we don't always have a journal, so I have told them they can either voice note it,
mm,
so, or put it in their notes. It doesn't have to be an essay. The
mm,
point is, at the end of the week, they then have to go back, look at everything they wrote, a sentence or two every hour. So in the day, you've got like 12, 14, 15 sentences, and they categorize the sentences into different categories.
mm,
And then we do a percentage of how positive their self-talk was, negative, and essentially useless. Like it
mm.
served no purpose, because some of the inner voice, it's just like, oh, the sky's blue, it's always blue.
Yeah.
That's neither positive or negative, it just is. But yeah, it gives you a real interesting insight into that person after 1 week.
Yeah, it would be. And what sort of topics are like, at the forefront of that person's mind, I guess.
So obviously it varies individual to individual, but always the surprising, well, it's not so surprising now because I've done the exercise a few times, but for the people taking part is how negative or critical that voice can sometimes be, and they just let it pass. And I say to them, we're not even capturing 1% of your inner landscape or terrain.
Mm.
It's only 12 times in the day we've caught what you're saying to yourself,
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's
and how many
such
impulses of
such an
thoughts are
eye
fired
opener.
off all during the day. But
Yeah,
it
and I guess,
shows,
yeah, if you look at the percentage of what's the positivity versus negativity, like how often do we beat ourselves up um, over the different thoughts, like you say, or the neutral thoughts that we
and
have.
it's so funny. One
Yeah.
of the participants, she said, I can't believe how many times I recorded myself going, oh, silly me, oh, silly me. which you may think is a
Yeah,
small thing, and
yeah,
that's not a
yeah.
big deal.
It's something that but that's the message that you keep relaying to yourself. Something that I'm conscious that I say is I always go, oh, sorry. So I'm constantly like apologizing. And even my husband will say, what are you sorry about? You have to apologize. And I'm like, it's just a natural thing. Partly South Africans, like South Africans do say sorry for a lot of things. Um, but it's the first thing that sort of comes out of your mouth. And you're just like, oh wow. Yeah, I don't know why I do it. But yeah.
But I think it's about, for example, the lady with this silly, she said, actually, I remember my mum calling me silly a lot when I was growing up. Oh, you're so silly. Oh, you silly
Mm,
sausage. Oh, and she goes, it's
mm,
become my inner dialogue. Like, I think I'm a silly, clumsy person. And so we worked on taking it out and actually seeing if she was silly, but it was just very interesting to see how
mm,
the wording was affecting her.
mm.
If you're just saying sorry and it does, and that's fine. It's funny, someone once told me, everything you're going to say sorry for, switch it to saying thank you. So instead of saying sorry, I'm running late, say thank you for waiting for me, for example.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to try that.
you
I'll
know
have to let you know how I go. Yeah, yeah, I really like that flip. It's like you say, such a shift in mindset. Um,
because it's just about not dimming your light, because
mm,
eventually you become sorry for being me, sorry for being me. That's what
mm, yeah.
the inference can
Um,
be.
no, thank you so much. I'm just,
You're
yeah,
welcome.
there's so much that you brought to the table today, Zarina, and so many things that you've just hinted at that have made me think about all the different, scenarios or things that I've said or, ways of learning from my kids, that I want to be more conscious about. Um, yeah, and just kind of, taking it, as it comes, in the wild moments and the not so wild moments. um, but you mentioned, I'd love to let people learn more about you, and to hear, so I, if you could just kind of let people know how, they can get hold of you, and I can link all the links, in
Okay.
the comments.
Yeah. So
And you mentioned
I
that you're
have
running this course for women, but you've got the parenting courses as well. Is there, how do you split those up?
So basically, ways to work with me, one-to-one coaching. This is all on the website.
Mhm.
The I have 6-week courses that I do for parenting under sixes. Then I have one for parenting tweens and parenting teenagers. These are all online, 1 hour each week live on Zoom. And the reason I've moved it all on Zoom is just because of the world situation, and it serves the global community as well.
Mhm.
Everyone can dial in. So, and then I have one more course that I run. Again, it's just an introduction, 6 weeks. It's called Spark, and it's about lighting that match to your inner transformation.
Mm.
So those are the courses that I do, and they will be advertised on the website. They're not up yet. Um, the Spark course booked out before I could put it on the website. So for
Woohoo.
round, yeah, so for round two, I'll put it up. I've started. Well, I haven't started. That my Instagram is the conscious-ish parent. Um, that's this year's.
I like that. We try so hard.
Right? I
Yeah,
thought it was really up myself because I was like the conscious parent, because like we're all on a
no,
journey, and I'm
yeah,
not completely there. So I thought the
yeah,
conscious-ish
yeah, yeah. I like it.
would would be better. So that's you can go ahead and like it. There's nothing up there yet, but
Yeah,
hopefully next month will be
it'll
when
start.
I start
Yeah,
posting and stuff.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
but yeah,
Awesome. Oh, thank you so much. I mean, it's been amazing. You've given so much of your time to, kind of like
no worries.
divulge the world of conscious parenting, and, I like the link between, the peaceful parent. We are trying to be the best parents that we can be with what we have, and essentially what we've grown up with ourselves, because none of us are perfect. Yeah, I love the example that you gave of, you know, the Instagrammer who her audience essentially just you know, kind of saw her in one way, but behind the doors as well, you know, like social media isn't reality. We know it, and I think a lot of the time we try and live up to this idealistic world, to be the perfect parent, but we really need to just accept the imperfections, and
Yeah,
you know, when we have our good wins, really to celebrate those, because we spend a lot of time beating ourselves up. Um, we concentrate more on the negativity than the positivity and the awesome wins that we've had. So
absolutely. And
yeah,
I'd go even one step further, Pip. If people could just make the flip in their mind that every moment in its imperfection is perfect, the
mm,
pressure would lift. I
mm,
if you live in a belief system that everything is happening for you, not to you, again, your energy
you're
changes.
shifting. Yeah, you're
And you
not a
know what,
victim
Pip?
anymore. Yeah,
No, the thing is that for any belief system, you can have an argument for and against. And
mm,
sometimes with clients, you know, there's a bit of back and forth. And I always say, you get to choose which belief system you want to pick. If you want to pick the one that says everything's against me, the world's a crappy place, you know, nothing goes my way,
mm,
that's your choice. I would suggest picking one that serves you better, because at the end of the day, we don't actually know what is reality. We don't
mm,
really know if there is a force that's against you, and we don't know if there's a force that's for you. But why don't you
mm.
just pick the belief system that serves you better day to day?
Yeah, and to be like also mindful of the fact that it's okay if you have those days, but you know, to just try and like bring it in every now and then, to realize that you have that choice, to make
Yeah.
that choice.
And how do you
um
react to that day, right? That's
mm,
what's in your power. It's not
yeah.
in your power if your toilet flood, like your
Yeah.
toilet gets blocked. That's
Yeah.
not in your power, but it's in your power to how you then handle it the next moment by moment, moment by moment, moment by moment. It's
Yeah.
your choice. You have a choice every moment.
Yeah, we do. And sometimes we can't see that because we get so swallowed up by what we're feeling. So I loved, you know, like what you said, you know, just kind of, if you're going to make a conscious effort to do something about it, to actually put a plan in place, like your example of working with, you know, the journaling, but taking that step forward and going, you know, if I'm going to do this, maybe think about it every couple of hours. Like, how am I feeling? How am I thinking? What messages am I saying to myself? So there's so much that we can, you know, learn about our actions towards our children, but also about ourselves in this whole process, and as women and wanting to
100%.
grow as well. So thank you so much again. I've
You're
yeah, I think
welcome.
I could carry on talking to you for ages, and I would love to get like specific about specific problems or issues, or you know, anything that yeah. And I'm sure that hopefully, you know, other mums that have listened to this will yeah, go and learn, get to learn more from you by, you know, looking at your website, and like you mentioned, Dr. Shefali, just being able to use Dr. Google, that we love, and pick up all the different tips, because at the end of the day we just need to support each other in working
Yeah,
through our journeys. We
absolutely.
spend so much time struggling and feeling alone, but we have all these resources at our fingertips, and I just think it's just
Mm.
bringing them together and realizing, what did you like? What can you take from that? Okay, move on if you didn't like that. You know, just hearing from all of you incredible people is um, helping us become the best mums that we can be. So
Absolutely. Well,
yeah,
listen, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for doing what you do. Such
thank
a big
you.
fan of you. Love it. Love
Thank
your
you.
I love your intention behind everything you do, actually, Pip. Like you're a very
Oh,
genuine person. So
thank you.
anytime that we can work together, I'm always up for
Oh,
that.
amazing. Thanks, Zarina. And I really appreciate your time. And yeah, we'll definitely be in touch.
No
So
worries.
thank you.
See
Oh,
you.
last thing before you leave, what is one thing that you would like to say to everybody else who's listened? If there's
I'd like
something
to
big on
say
there. Yeah.
Sorry?
I said we've possibly gone there where you gave us a few tips, but is there anything interesting or funny fact or something interesting that you'd like to share?
Something
I'm putting you on the
interesting.
spot.
Yeah.
What's your
Well, I'd
wildest
like to think,
moment
oh, my
as a
wildest
parent?
moment
A
as a
a
parent.
crazy story.
I don't know if it's a crazy story. It was quite stressful to Auckland, 17 and a half hour direct flight. And
Oh, hello. Oh, oh no. Oh
like, it's bad to scream, but she could have screamed anywhere on this plane. It was, couldn't physically lift her off the aisle. Yeah, it was, I don't know what you'd call that.
no.
It's traumatic.
Traumatic. Well, we have all been there.
I
So
just kept thinking 17 and a half hours of this. Oh, but eventually we were able to calm her. But yeah, I was not very conscious in that moment. All I kept thinking is like, oh my God, what is everyone going to think? What are they saying? Oh.
this is what we do. Thank you for
Instead
sharing.
of focusing on the poor kid whose eardrum is probably bursting in her ear, like
Yeah.
priorities.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. But thank you. There's definitely other mothers who's listened to this that go, yes, oh my gosh, I've been there. So
Oh
thank you.
God.
All
Oh
right.
well.
All
Thank
the
you,
best.
Pip.
And
Thanks
I'll
for
share
having
all those
me.
details. No, thank you for your time. See you.
Okay. Take care.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.